Welcome back to Core Motivations Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Connolly. I'm a certified Enneagram coach and a Symbus Marriage Coach. I'm so glad you made it today. Whether it's for the first time or returning, it's really great to have you with us today. It's been a while since we sat down for some real talk. So how about it? Let's real talk today. During our time together, we will be discussing how to make meaning from our pain by shifting from something called victim mindset to a hero in our own story, to learn something called agency. And if this is new to some of you, well, then you're in the right spot. If not, perhaps this is a different take. So sit down, relax, and enjoy our time together. Before we get started today, I find it very important to share that our topic today is about shifting victim mindset, being the hero in our own story, and how to regain agency. Maybe it's for the first time in your life. I also want to be clear, this is not the same as being a victim of something. Please journey with me as I will continue to explain more as we move along today. It's very true. There are some conflicting views about the difference between a victim and victim mindset, and I want to touch on the differences. This is also not, and I emphasize not, a dismissal of genuine trauma. So let me again state for today, we're focusing on mindset, which is not the same as being a victim or experiencing something that was or possibly is a reality for you as an individual that is irreversible in many cases. Let me also stress, if you are needing help with such an experience, you can find resources in the show notes. If you know of someone who is experiencing something like this, please see or hear something, say something, and help that person get help. Part of my story, I've been a victim of abuse. And in my life, I certainly don't want that to define me as a person, who I am at my core. So please know, I understand this is not something that anyone wishes or wants to happen. And yet, this is the reality far more than we can count. I also believe that telling my story means bringing all the parts, the good, the bad, the hard, even the ugly. But that is not the topic for today. I just want it to be clear that there are people who are in fact a victim that have experienced an actual crime, accident, or otherwise, where there was no choice, meaning it was not invited or welcomed. What we are talking about today is this term victim mindset as a perspective, where it is entangled with identity, meaning this feeling of being wronged, which becomes the core part of a person's permanent identity. They believe they have zero power or control over their circumstances. There is a rejection of solution, meaning they resist problem solving or even accountability, preferring to stay in this cycle of blame for validation or sympathy, and may even have this generalized filter where they see new challenges as a personal attack or injustice. This person can feel they are not heard and often misunderstood, with this continued seeking of empathy. And finally, this perceived experience is that they ask for help and do not receive it. In other words, this cognitive trap of believing that others are more fortunate than them, so they behave or speak from a place of victimization. And again, this is a perceived, not actual. So if you're ready, let's get into it. We don't choose every chapter. Life hands us things we didn't ask for, like loss, rejection, betrayal. disappointment, failure, and unexpected change. Sometimes we spend a lot of energy asking, why did this happen to me? And sometimes there isn't an answer that satisfies us. That's not weakness, that's human. But if we stay in that question, we can eventually begin to see ourselves primarily through what has happened to us, and the painful experience, it becomes our identity, such as this happened to me, therefore, this is who I am. We all have had painful chapters that we didn't create and we wouldn't choose. And that's where this mindset shift begins. You see, pain is part of the story, but it's not the whole story. This is hard to acknowledge, that we don't always get to choose what happens to us. However, we do have a choice in what we do with what happened. Perhaps we need to ask this question: what meaning am I going to give this experience? The event doesn't change, but the meaning can. Meaning doesn't erase the pain, and finding meaning doesn't signify everything happens for a reason, or that we should be grateful this terrible thing happened, or I should be over it. The pain wasn't really that bad. Instead, it can mean this hurt me, but it doesn't have to define me. You can acknowledge the loss, anger, grief, betrayal, disappointment, or trauma and still decide what comes next. The same experience can become evidence that the world isn't safe. It can also be evidence that people can't be trusted, or evidence that we're broken. But here's another take. It can become an invitation to know ourselves more deeply, a catalyst for change, a lesson in boundaries, a reminder of what really matters, and the beginning of a different chapter. Doesn't that sound amazing? When we focus on understanding victim mindset versus hero mindset, what we get is this back and forth. So victim mindset tends to focus on what happened, who caused it, what wasn't fair, what we lost, what we can't control. Those things may be all true. The problem is when we stay there too long, that experience becomes our identity. And the shift isn't defining what happened. It's recognizing that constantly looking backward can keep us from moving forward. So the hero mindset asks, what am I going to do with this? The hero doesn't necessarily have more control over circumstances. The hero simply asks different questions. What can I control? What choice do I have here? What can I learn? What do I want to become? What do I want the next chapter to look like? That's the mindset shift. Victim mindset says, this happened to me. Hero mindset says, this happened to me, and now what? That little and now what, if you're looking closely, that is powerful. It moves you from circumstance to choice. The hero doesn't deny the pain. This is important because when we hear just change your mindset, it sounds very dismissive. Being the hero doesn't mean pretending you're okay, forgiving before you're ready, finding a silver lining immediately, acting like the pain doesn't matter. taking responsibility for someone else's actions. So we're left with this thought. I didn't choose this chapter, but I choose what I do with it. So when we stop asking who is to blame and start asking who you want to become, there are times when accountability and justice absolutely matter. But once you've acknowledged what happened, there's another question. Do I want this experience to make me smaller or stronger? Not stronger in the cliche, everything happens for a reason kind of way. Stronger because you've developed self-awareness, boundaries, courage, compassion, resilience, and even wisdom. It's a clearer understanding of yourself, which is also known as agency. Every hero has a setback. Think about the stories we love, the people that we watch in real life. The hero doesn't have to be perfect in life because they get knocked down. They lose something. They make mistakes. They face things they didn't expect. The story becomes interesting because of what they do next. And that's true for us too. The difficult chapter isn't necessarily the end of the story. It's the chapter where we discover who we are. Your story is bigger than what happened to you. We can allow one experience to become the headline of our entire life. You know, the person who was betrayed, the person who failed, the person who was abandoned, the person who didn't get the opportunity. But what if that's only one of the chapters? The hero mindset says, that's part of my story. That's not the whole story. The ultimate shift from powerless to purposeful. Ready for the shift? Check this out. Victim mindset says, what happened to me? Hero mindset, what am I going to do with what happened to me? Victim mindset, I have no choice. Hero mindset says, what choice do I have? Victim mindset, this is who I am now. Hero mindset, who do I want to become? Victim mindset, my story has already been written. And hero mindset, I am still writing. See, being the hero of your own story, it doesn't mean you're responsible for everything that happens to you. It means you refuse to give everything that happens to you the power to determine who you become. And this is the payoff. The hero mindset, it helps you reclaim your agency. Agency is the belief that I have the ability to influence my life through my choices, responses, actions, and mindset. And when we've been hurt or disappointed, it's easy to hand over that power. We start saying, they made me feel that way. Because that happened, I can't. If they would just change, then I could move forward. This is just the way my life is. And there's nothing I can do about it. And sometimes there genuinely are things we can't change. I believe that to be true. But the hero mindset asks, okay, what is mine to choose? Agency isn't control. This distinction is really important because control says, I need everything around me to change so that I can be okay. Agency says, I may not be able to change what's happening around me, but I can choose how I respond. You can't control another person's behavior. You can control your boundaries. You can't control whether someone understands you. You can control whether you continue trying to convince them. You can't control what happened yesterday. You can control what you do today. You can't control whether someone chooses you. You can choose whether you continue abandoning yourself, trying to get them to choose you. Agency is recognizing that you still have a role in creating what comes next. The moment agency comes back, it's when you stop asking, how do I get my circumstances to change? And start asking, what can I do from where I am? The question puts you back in the driver's seat. Maybe you can't change the situation, but you can change how you respond. You can make a decision, set boundaries. You can ask for help. You can leave. You could stay. You could learn. You could try again. You could stop. You could begin. You have choices. And sometimes the first act of agency is simply recognizing that you have a choice. Agency means taking responsibility without taking blame. You may not be responsible for what happened, but you can be responsible for what you do with it. That's a huge mindset shift. I didn't cause this, but I get to decide what I do next. That's reclaiming your power and agency without self-blame. It's so true. We cannot write the chapters that were already written. But what happens when you pick up the pen? Perhaps at that point, we can then begin asking, who do I want to become? What do I want this experience to teach me? What choice can I make today? Here's what I hope is the takeaway for all of us today. Maybe the shift from victim to hero isn't one big dramatic moment. Maybe it's a series of small choices. The choice to stop defining yourself by what happened, to question the story you've been telling yourself, and to not ask why me, but what now? You may not be able to change what happened, but you can choose what you do with it. You can choose what to learn, what to let go of, what you carry forward, and who you become. Because you are more than what has happened to you. Your past is part of your story, but it doesn't get the final word. Agency begins when we realize I may not have control of everything, but I still have a choice. I want to leave you with this. Sometimes that one realization is enough to change everything. You can become the author of your next chapter. Let's finish up our time with the fun stuff. This podcast is not a substitute for medical care. The materials, movies, videos, or books referred to in this podcast are recommendations only. The views expressed by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the podcast host. That's me, or sponsors. Join me each week as we dive into all things Enneagram, self-care ideas, self-love patterns and rhythms, share ideas from other reputable authors, doctors, and my favorite podcasters. With that, if this episode helped, please give us a follow and leave us a quick review. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. It helps others who are purposing to be mindset shifters, heroes, and agency holders. You can see all the things in the show notes. You can find me, Michelle, on Instagram at @coremotivations_coach and through email Michelle at coremotivationscoach.com. Thank you for being here today. So let me leave you with this. Until next time, and as always, I'm rooting for you.